And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for Deborah Kobylt Live. You know, we all need a little strength and we all need to be a little resilient, particularly during these times. And my next guest is just that. And wait until you hear her story. Amberly Lago. Thanks a lot for joining us, Amberly.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to see you and talk.
Your story is incredible. You wrote the book,
Thank you.
True Grit and Grace, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. This is an outstanding book. And, you know, it's not like a lot of other books that talk about how to get yourself back going again, because your story and what you went through, I don't think most people would be able to find their way back. So other than being an author, you're also a leading expert in the field of resilience, transformation, health, and wellness. And you've done a TEDx talk. You try and empower people, you know, pretty much around the world on how to deal with certain issues, also with chronic pain, which is something that you've dealt with now for many years. Let's talk a little bit about your life and that moment that you had to take a pivot because everything changed. Talk about it.
Well, I think so many people are in a place where they're having to pivot right now, whether it's their businesses or their personal life or whatever it may be. There's a lot of people with what's going on in the world right now that are having to pivot. And for me, my whole life was fitness and dancing. And, you know, I was sponsored by Nike. I had a full clientele when I was doing fitness training, fitness videos. I had trainers that worked for me, and everything changed in a blink of an eye when I was hit by an SUV while riding my motorcycle home from work. And, you know, I was sliding across the asphalt. And when I finally came to a stop, my leg was crumbled into pieces. My femoral artery was severed. And I was, you know, rushed to the hospital. I had no idea that it was going to changed my life for the rest of my life. Rushed to the hospital. And the first thing I learned when I woke up from a coma was doctors were going to amputate my leg. I had a 1% chance of saving my leg.
Hang on. I love what your husband did. So you were in a coma. And they went to him. You didn't know anything about this. They went to him and said, I think we need to take her leg. And what did he say?
I know. My husband actually, by the way, still reminds me to this day that I have two legs because of him, because they were going to amputate. And he said, no, don't touch her. I want her to wake up out of a coma with both of her legs. And he actually got his computer, started Googling limb salvage, because he's a lieutenant with the highway patrol and he knew the terminology limb salvage. He Googled limb salvage and he found one doctor that was willing to try to save my leg. And so it took an act of God, but we got transferred to Cedars, where one by surgery after another, they were able to piece by piece put my leg back together and save it.
Unbelievable. But how many surgeries did you have? I mean, this was not just, okay, I was in an accident, they put me in a coma, they did some surgery and then I went home. Yeah. Tell me your journey. This is a big journey.
Well, when I got transferred to Cedars, I remember Dr. Don Wiss is who saved my leg. And I remember he wasn't supposed to be at work until Monday. And it was a Sunday night. And I happened to be, you know, all the visitors had left. My husband had left. I was there alone. And a man walks into my room and he's got on a blazer, and on the name tag, it says Dr. D. Wiss. And I looked and I said, oh, you're the man that's going to save my leg. He said, well, I don't know. We're going to try. We're going to have to look at it. We'll clean it all up and we'll see what we can do. But just him telling me, well, we're going to try. And knowing that I had that 1% chance, that is what I focused on. That was my glimmer of hope that got me through 34 surgeries.
34 surgeries. Now, let me just remind people, what did you just say? That was my glimmer of hope. A lot of people, and very likely even myself, would say, oh, but what do you mean? You don't think you can? You don't, what's going to happen? But you focused on that little glimmer of hope. Right there is your resilience, right? Because you were thinking about the possibility as opposed to what could go wrong. I'm telling you, that's everything. Because I would have thought of what could go wrong. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I think that resilience takes resilient people really focus what to put their attention on, because if you focus on the wrong thing, it can take you down a rapid, like I was spiraling into a depression there for a while until I really focused on what was good in my life. And the good thing is, we all have that capability. We all have that resilience within us. And it's just our ability to tap into it and focus on those things. Resilient people really focus on the good. They hunt for the good. They really count their blessings. And I think it's really important. And you hear a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, be grateful, be thankful, focus on gratitude, start a gratitude journal. But I'm telling you, it works. Gratitude changed my life. It's alchemy. It really turns what you don't have into what you do have, and what you can't do into what you can do.
Talk to me about your darkest moment. Now, 34 surgeries, that wasn't done one after the other. They did how many surgeries, and then they let you out of the hospital, and then you had to go in the hospital? And what were all these surgeries about and for?
Yeah, I know, when someone just asked me the other day, so I just, my youngest daughter was like, Mom, you're too old for TikTok. And so of course I got on TikTok right away.
Better believe it. You think so, kid? It's like, wait a minute. It's like,
yes. And I just last night, I was scrolling through some of the comments on a post that I did. And one of them said, why in the world would you choose to keep your leg? Why would you choose 34 surgeries? And the thing is, I didn't know that if I would have been told maybe in the beginning, okay, you're going to have 34 surgeries, either we take your leg or you can have 34 surgeries to keep it, I probably would have said, you know what, go ahead and take it. If I would have known that I was going to be diagnosed with a complex regional pain syndrome, a nerve disease that leaves you in constant chronic pain, I probably would have said, take my leg. In fact, a year after they had saved my leg and I was in all of this constant chronic pain still, I went into one of my doctors and I said, you know what? You're going to have to just cut it off. I cannot live with the pain. After all of those surgeries, I said, just go ahead and take it, cut it off. And he said, we can't do that. That was my deepest moment of despair. That was my darkest moment, is when I went home and I realized this is the rest of my life. I'm going to be in this pain forever. Now, complex regional pain syndrome is a disease of your sympathetic nervous system. It's and your immunity. It's when your nervous system is all out of whack. So there's a constant loop of pain. It's ranked highest on the pain scale. So that means it hurts worse than a kidney stone, which I've had those. It hurts worse than labor. I've had a natural childbirth. I know that. And it's with you forever.
And it's chronic. It doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
A kidney stone passes, a child is born, but chronic pain, oh my gosh. Don't they also call that the suicide? What's the term that they use for that?
They call it the suicide disease, because people that find out they have it either slowly kill themselves with drugs or alcohol, or they end their lives because they just can't take the pain. And I had a big life and career, and I was an outgoing person. And then all of a sudden, my world got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I did not want to live anymore. I was just too scared to die. I was in a deep depression. And I really think that by the grace of God, I had that little bit of light left in me. And we all have that light within us. And it's up to us to find ways to make that light burn brighter, whether you call that, your spirit, whatever you want to call that light. We have to find ways to fill our spirit and find the hope, because all we need is, like I said earlier, all we need is a little glimmer of it to let us keep going forward, to allow us to keep, moving forward and have the life of joy despite
Amberly,
pain.
How did you find that glimmer of hope? Because as you know, that's hard. And anyone listening or watching this is saying, I can't find it. How did you find it? What did you do? What was that little pinhole that you were able to see it?
Well, I think there's really a gift in desperation. And I was so desperate to the point where, I think my children are my biggest inspirations. And I was laying in a dark room drinking, and I had started drinking every day, and I thought, this is not the life that I am meant to live. This is, there's so much, there has to be more. There has to be more. This is not what I'm meant for. And this is not the mother that I want to be. And I'm not the wife that my husband married. And there was just that desperation where I thought, that moment that I prayed and I thought, God, please show me the way. And he answered, and I couldn't do it alone. And I had to believe in something bigger than me. And so, like I said, I think by the grace of God, I get emotional because it was a real turning point for me.
Yeah. Look, I'm getting emotional with you. Before we start getting emotional over something personal, this is just going to be the emotional hour, right, Amberly?
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
And I couldn't do it alone. Look, I would not be where I am if I didn't have a community of friends and family that have helped me along the way. And, somebody said, well, you're really lucky you had a community. And I said, well, your hard work puts you where your blessings can find you. And it's up to us to build our community. And how we do that is one thing that really helped me to get out of my self-pity and my despair and my, oh, woe is me, and I just can't do these things, is I got into service. And service is what really helped me when I got out of myself and I reached out to see what I could do for other people. And so I had a lot of people say, well, what could you do when you were stuck in a hospital bed? And I said, well, there was plenty I could do. I could make phone calls. I was giving the nurses exercises to do while they were in their hospital. There's so many things that you can do. A lot of times, especially right now, people just need to know that you're there. You don't even have to do anything. They just need to know that you're there and that you are willing to help them and hear them. And so if anybody's listening today and they're struggling, please reach out to somebody. Reach out if you need help, or reach out to somebody who you feel is strong, because I guarantee they'd love to hear from you as well.
I just think that's a hard place to be, because a lot of times when you're feeling weak, you'll reach out to a friend, even if you've known them for a while. Sometimes they're not quite there when you're having a tough time,
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I do think you have to reach inside of yourself, which is what you did. Tell us about the gratitude journal, because everybody hears about a gratitude journal and they're like, does that really work? What is it? What do you do? Tell us what you do.
Well, when I was in the hospital, I didn't know that I was developing these tools that would carry me, forward for the rest of my life. But how it started was in the hospital. I was so drugged up I'd have a surgery, then I'd have a day of recovery, then I'd have a surgery, then I'd have a day of recovery. And so I would write down in a little notebook everything, if I had a visitor come see me, I'd write down their name and what they brought, so I wouldn't forget to give them a thank you note. We're big on thank you notes, or how I was raised. It was like, you always write a thank you note. And I realized when I was writing down how grateful I was, and I was writing these thank you notes, that it was shifting my mindset to a place of gratitude, and it was making me feel better, and it became my medicine. It shifted my focus. So instead of staring down at my leg and thinking, oh my gosh, what if today's the day they're going to amputate it? Look at how scarred it is, or my pain. I was focusing on all the great things that were going on in my life. I was focusing on little things and big things. And so I carried that through. And so every day I focus on what I'm grateful for. And every night I even talk about it with my daughter, and we have a gratitude jar, and we'll write down what we're grateful for and we'll put it in a jar. And it does work.
How's your husband been through all this? It's hard on the husbands and the caretakers. Let's face it. Yeah.
I begged him to interview on my podcast. I was like, will you be my first guest on my podcast? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it, but he did interview with me. We did another podcast where we were interviewed, and it really gave me a perspective on the pain that he went through this whole situation, because I've done a lot of interviews in the last, few years since my book, and seeing him answer questions, and he got very emotional and choked up, and I could see his pain for the first time. It made me cry. And I thought, wow, there is nothing worse than my pain is bad, but there's nothing worse than when you know that your pain is causing someone else pain. That's what's the hardest thing for me, I think, because I don't want to see my family hurt. He has been my hero. He has shown up for me. I don't know, every single day he was at the hospital. He had to become the caretaker. He was working. He was taking care of our home. He had so many hats that he had to wear and so many roles that he stepped up to. And so he is really my hero. And I remember my editor came back after reading my book and he said, well, this is a love story. And I was like, this is not a love story. He goes, no, this is really a love story. The love that you have between you and your husband is beautiful. And I didn't even see it that way. But then when I went back to read it for the Audible version, I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. It is a love story. And,
I'm sure when you're living it, it's like, it's so tough. You didn't see it. He didn't see it, but I picked that up too, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
You did? Well,
yeah, I did.
I tell him all the time that he's my hero and this is our story. This is not my story. This is not my book. This is our book. I wouldn't be able to do this without his support. He's been by my side through so much. And it was a real struggle as I got better and I started to be able to do things on my own. I think he had a lot of fear that I was going to hurt myself, or, when I finally was able to drive again and I wouldn't answer my phone, he would get anxiety, like, did something happen to her? Is she okay? And so it's been a huge transformation that we've gone through for both of us.
The pain. Because you do live with chronic pain. How do you handle that? Is it medicine? Is it mind over matter? Is it a little of everything? And how would you rate that pain on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you say it is today?
Well, today, actually, I'm sitting here talking to you with one sock on and one sock off because I can't even have anything touching my ankle. The CRPS, there's flare-ups that you can have, and some might be really bad, like yesterday. For some reason, the thing that's the hardest for me to do is go to some place like Target or Michael's and stand in line or stand in place. I've actually sat down in the middle of the floor in Michael's before because of the pain. And so right now the pain, I would say it's about a 5, but the funny thing is, when you focus on something a lot, it tends to get worse. And so I think that's the same thing as like, when a baby scrapes their knees, and if you were to go, oh my gosh, look at your bloody knees, it's horrible, and you cry, it would just magnify it. And so I think for me, as I'm sitting here thinking, I think that distraction is a good tool for me. I think it's important to embrace your pain, but it's a balance. It's a balancing act for me. I had to really learn to listen to my body. Something that helped me in the beginning was grit. And grit was my ability to push through pain and to a lot of times suck it up and pull up my bootstraps and keep moving forward. But what I didn't do a lot of times was I didn't listen to my body, and I would push and push and push. And it wasn't until I ended up in the ICU and doctors told me, if you would have waited one more day, you would be dead. I was passing a kidney stone and it got infected. And my thought, just to give you a perspective of what CRPS pain is like. So I'm passing a kidney stone and my thought was, well, this is great. I can walk without a limp. My leg doesn't hurt. You see, your brain can only interpret so much in one area. So the pain was so hurting my back so bad that while it was passing, I was at the gym and I told my friend, I said, "Hey, Mike, can you give me some Bengay so I can put it on my back and work out?" So I put it on my back. I wrapped my back up, but it wasn't until I was going into convulsions and had to go to the ER, the doctors, I said, I think there might be something going wrong with my kidney. And he did some blood work and he said, "You don't look like you should be here. You look like a pretty healthy person." He said, "But you're really sick. I have to admit you to ICU." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "You're septic." He goes, and my first words were, "Well, I don't want to go to ICU." And the nurse goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I won't be able to see my daughter." Because but that scared me when I had the doctor say, "If you would have waited any longer, you would have died." And so there's a fine line between, distracting yourself from the pain, but also listening to your body. And I really feel like it's a mind, body, and spirit transformation. It's not just one thing. It is really taking care of your body, eating the healthiest, getting rid of inflammatory foods. I cut out alcohol because it's inflammatory, so I don't drink. Cut out sugar. Well, I do that as much as possible. Let's be real. It is meditation. It's concentrating on my breath. You can do things like focus on your breathing. I mean, Lamaze was not invented for nothing. I mean, that your breath work is powerful. Meditation is powerful. And I think that so much of how I get through the pain is through my mindset. And a lot of people got upset with me when they saw me on the doctor's TV and I talked about mindset. And mindset doesn't get rid of my pain. It gets me through my pain. It allows me to do things that otherwise I wouldn't be able to do because I would be so down in the dumps, so focused on my pain. But with the right mindset, you can get through anything.
I want to remind people that as perfect as you look there, as you said, you've got a leg dangling because it's a little bit of pain. I think you said the sock is either on or off because
I'm looking down at my foot. I'm like, it's not pretty.
Right. But you see what I mean? Because, on the outside, you want to be so strong, not just for yourself, but for other people, and to say, you can do this. But if you could see what's going on down there, it's really not so pretty and it's not so perfect. And that's the point, right? Mm-hmm. Because I love what you said once here, progress in your book. You said progress, not perfection, right? I thought that was so great. Progress, not perfection. There's a few things that I know you live by. That gratitude journal is everything. Loving yourself. That's a hard one. A lot of people say, what the heck does that mean? Loving myself. I like myself just fine, but how do you love yourself? How do you do that and say, I'm going to love myself enough to get through this?
Well, tell us. I didn't love myself at all. And especially when I got out of the hospital and my whole identity was shattered. I mean, I was out of work. I lost my career. My whole life, I was a professional dancer and, did music videos and modeled and was on magazine covers. And now I'm deformed and scarred from the hip down. I was devastated and I actually hated my leg. And hate's a 4-letter word in our house, but I hated it. And something that changed that for me, because sometimes it's harder for us to shift our perspective, and it helps when we can have somebody snap us out of something, or somebody that cares about us kind of get us to see it in a different way. And who did that for me was Dr. Wiss. And I remember I had gone in to see him and I hated my leg so much that I remember when he sat down in front of me in his, crisp white jacket, he put my leg in his lap. And my first thought was, oh, I can't believe he would put my leg on his nice jacket. And he looked at it like it was a masterpiece. And he touched it like, wow, look at this that I saved. It's a piece of art. And I cried. And I thought, if he can look at it that way, maybe I can learn to do that too. And something changed in me that day where I started to view my scars as all that I had overcome instead of all that was flawed and wrong. And I was able to finally let go of so much of the shame that I carried. And instead, I was able to wear shorts again. And, I had this one doctor tell me, he said, well, when I was being released from the hospital the first time, he said, well, you'll probably never wear shorts again, and you probably will never run again. And I not only wore shorts again, I wore a bikini on the beach, and it took me about 2 years, but I ran again with my daughter, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. And when you can finally let go of shame and just embrace all of your imperfections and flaws, then they don't bother you anymore, and no one can use them against you. Anybody can point them out or say something about it, and it doesn't affect you.
Yeah, you
It's
are a
freedom.
living testament that you can do it. You are. So you do talks, right? You do lectures. Tell us how people can find about all that you do, your podcast, your book, which is a really great read. It's also an easy read, everybody. You can read it, put it down, come back to it. I got a lot of inspiration from it myself. I told you I'm going to call you one of these days to get a little more inspiration, because getting surgery is a scary thing. And I'm someone who has put off surgery for a knee injury that I have. And it's starting to really impact my own life. And reading this book helped me get a little closer to saying, you can do this. And that's a great thing, because that's hard to do. It's hard to inspire people. So how can people hear more from you, if you will?
My favorite part of this entire journey is connecting with people. So I love when people reach out to me. You can reach me at amberlylago.com. That's AMBERLYLAGO.com. I hang out on Instagram. In my bio, you can find, you can actually get a link for a downloadable gratitude journal, as well as some other gifts on my website or in my bio at Amberly Lago Motivation, and my podcast where you can get little tips and tools for resilience is True Grit and Grace.
True Grit and Grace. That's beautiful. And how often do you do you ever do like personal counseling with anyone or anything like that?
Yes, I still do coaching. I love people. I have one of my clients I've had for 20 years. But yes, I do coaching, and I actually I'm really excited about this. It's taken me a year to put this together. So I'm glad you're asking about this, because I'm excited about this. I have a course called Your Resilient Life, and it is a 4-week course on mind, body, spirit. And it's a transformational course to help you really tap into your inner most resilience and thrive no matter what you're going through in life, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. So, and then the end of the course, we talk about how to really find your voice and express your message to the world, whether that's through a book or blog or podcast or social media. So I'm excited. It's taken me about a year to put this together, and it's taken me 10 years of building these tools and figuring out what it is that really makes you the most resilient. So I'm excited. This starts in 2.5 weeks.
That's really incredible. Do you ever have a down day where you say, I can't do it? And if so, how do you pick yourself back up?
I think we all have days where we're down. I don't think we would appreciate the good days if we didn't have bad days. What goes up must come down, and what goes down must come up. And so on those bad days, I think the thing that I do the most is I force myself. Sometimes you have to force yourself. Sometimes it's not easy to focus on gratitude when you're having a crappy day, but I really force myself to think about what I'm grateful for. I think accountability is priceless. It's key. And I have an accountability partner every single morning. I check in, I wake up, and I have a morning routine and a nightly routine. So in my morning routine, I do some reading, either from a self-development book or a spiritual book. I do a short meditation, and then I text my accountability partner, these are the 3 things that I'm grateful for. This is what I read this morning. And so it really helps you keep moving forward, even if you're in a funk, because when she tells me what she's grateful for, kindness and gratitude is contagious. Energy is contagious. So if we surround ourselves with inspired, passionate, motivated people, then the more inspired and passionate and motivated we are.
One more question. A friend of mine was just texting me. You know what she said? She said, but what do you do if you live with someone that's not inspiring and makes you feel awful all day? How do you actually get around that and make yourself feel better? That's a great question.
That's hard.
Because it's hard to really stay motivated and do the right thing when you have somebody that you're living with who makes you feel kind of awful all the time. So I'd love to have an answer for her. How do you get through that?
Well, I think that, our community, we can't always just say, oh, I'm going to get rid of this person that you live with or you're under the same roof. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now when we
particularly
stay at home. And so I think it's really the more you set healthy boundaries. I mean, we have to be around some people, but we can limit our time around those people. And then we can do things to make sure that we are not letting their negativity affect us. And I really think that communication is key. And the more that we get grounded with our morning routine, like for me, if I did not have a morning routine, I would feel so scattered and I would be more affected by someone who was negative or who was not as motivated. Then I would be more affected by that. But if I can wake up and have that time and get grounded and even write down what I'm willing to put up with and what is non-negotiable, like that's not okay that you just said that. I don't want to be treated that way. We really, really have to set those healthy boundaries. And the more we do, the more confidence we gain and the less resentful we are.
Thank you so much. Amberly, you are just lovely. And all you've been through, you've inspired me from reading your book and just from talking to you. So I thank you very, very much. Please, everyone, pick this up. True Grit and Grace, turning tragedy into triumph. And boy, you've had plenty of tragedy and you've got lots of triumph. So thank you. I've learned quite a bit from you, and I'm going to be calling you if you don't mind.
Yes, call me. Call me.
Yeah, please. Because I got a real fear of even going in for surgery. I've got to get over that hurdle. And when I read this, I said, "Ooh, she knows. She's somebody who gets it." So we all need. It's
all how you look at it. It's all how you look at it.
All how you look at it. So thank you so very much. Have a beautiful day. Please pick up True Grit and Grace. Check out her podcast. There's many talks. Go to the website. Right, it's Amberly Lago. .com, right? Yep. Simple. And she answers all your questions, and you answer all their questions too on social media, right? So you're very present with people. So thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find us everywhere: Facebook, YouTube, iHeart, Apple Podcasts. I mean, wherever you get a video or an audio podcast, you'll find us. And thank you always for supporting us so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.